So after I posted my blog entry about Bluepill, lots of people started insinuating that I'm paid by Intel just because I developed it for AMD 64. I developed it for AMD 64 just because this was part of more general research than on Vista 64, and the natural choice of processor for Vista 64 was AMD 64. So because I was doing some other research on AMD 64, naturally I investigated also this SVM technology. As we have seen today, it was the first time I've seen Dino's presentation. We can do the very similar thing on VTX as I did with Bluepill. So I wrote, it seems possible, but we now know that it is possible to port Bluepill to VTX. Still, it seems that Pacifica technology will offer, or already offers a little bit more functionality, which at the moment could be used to come up with a protection against Bluepill, not detection by protection, and Intel doesn't have it. And it seems that some other technologies, with this time can be used for creating Bluepill level 2, will be available faster on SVM rather than on VTX, like 1 year earlier. Bluepill prevention. Well, we just heard that you can disable hardware virtualization on Intel processors in BIOS. In my computer, which has SVM, I cannot disable in BIOS. There is no option in BIOS for disabling SVM extension on my AMD machine. But I heard that they are going to release some updates for BIOSes to make it possible. But still, it's a little bit crazy idea to recommend it as a protection, because we had all those people working for many years to come up with this virtualization technology just for us to disable it in BIOS, right? So it doesn't make much sense. And of course, virtualization technology is very cool. It should allow for doing very good things, right? Not only for creating malware. Another idea is hypervisor built into operating system. So we can imagine Microsoft providing their own thin hypervisor, which would just be used to prevent other hypervisors from installing. There is no such hypervisor on Vista, and I heard somewhere that Microsoft is working on its own hypervisor, but it's like a 3 years time frame. But still, the technology we have seems to make it possible for creating such hypervisor. But then the question is, again, we have this virtualization technology, so it doesn't make much sense to just disable it. So the question is, what would be the policy to allow third-party vendors to load their own hypervisor, like VMware, for example? The question?
Could you have it so that it only detects when a copy of the current settings are duplicated for the VMCB, so that it knows that this is so that it only detects Intel-like activities to allow?
The question was if it's possible to detect it when I try to clone this virtual machine. In my opinion, this would be too difficult, because you have to have some kind of behavioral arbiter which would observe what actually. No, that would be too hard, because you would have to. Because this is a hardware instruction, right? You just run VM run instruction. So this would introduce a big impact on VM run. But who would compare it? Who should compare it? Who? Okay. So yeah, but I can create VMCB in many different ways. Well, not so many, but probably many different ways, more than one way, right? This is not something which could be detected by signature scanning. So we would have to have some non-trivial logic in this hypervisor to judge whether what we are trying to do is to cloning the virtual machine, or we are just VMware trying to run a standard virtual machine, whatever. So the question is, and of course I don't know the answer, what would be the policy for allowing other people to insert their own hypervisors? And I also know that some, not only virtual machine vendors would be interested in inserting those hypervisors, but also providers of antivirus technology would like to sit in a hypervisor, right? To be able to see the system from a non-compromised, from a non-compromised point of view. We can also think about modifying SVM technology in such a way that it wouldn't be possible to move the operating system on the fly into the virtual machine. So for example, we could forbid or we could require that every created VM should start running in real mode, not protected mode. But again, that would be some loss of functionality, and it wouldn't solve the problem of permanent, so classic, like Subvert-like based malware. Another solution which I've thought of is to introduce another instruction, like let's say SVM check, but the point is that it should take some kind of unique password, which is unique for a specific machine, and which returns if you're inside VM or outside VM. Sorry. In my opinion, it's necessary to have this password, because if we didn't have it, then we don't have a full virtualization, right? Because then we can write a generic program which behaves differently inside VM and outside VM. So, but if we had this like 64-bit password, which we get like on a special certificate on with a processor. So we buy a processor, we get a certificate and a password on it, and we enter this password into our antivirus program during installation. That should allow for detection. But on the other hand, within the next few years, like 3-5 years, we should expect that everything will be run inside VM, right? So this would be a good solution for now, where we know that like Vista or some other standard desktop OS, they don't run inside VM, so that would be useful for detecting blue pill. But in a longer perspective, it's, everything would be run in a VM, so this wouldn't be useful too much. Okay, so we've seen today that arbitrary code can be injected into Vista 64, of course, provided that attacker first got administrative rights. And we've also seen that this could be abused, for example, to create blue pill-based malware, which is based on hardware virtualization, which is available on AMD64 processors. We've seen that blue pill installs on the fly, so it doesn't introduce any modifications into BIOS nor hard disk. And well, blue pill is just a general hijacking technique that can be used in many different ways. Delusion was just one example, very simple example, how to use it to create network-based backdoor. Blue pill should be, or I believe that blue pill is undetectable in any practical way, and I stress the practical because, as I said, I'm aware of a few theoretical attacks, which I don't think could be used on a massive scale in any corporate environment. Blocking blue pill-based attacks on software level might prevent other independent software vendors from providing their own VMMs, which might not be that good. Changes in hardware might allow for easy blue pill detection today. Yeah. These are references. The following people contributed to this presentation directly or indirectly. Okay, and I think, yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.